your FT and in your FTE adjustment report, you should see this FTED 003 report. And let me know, Shelly, in the room if they can access that or if they're having any issues with that before I proceed. Everybody good?
We're good.
Okay, great. So just kind of give you some helpful hints here, okay? So in terms of opening and preparing the reports, okay, it's just kind of giving you some hints here in terms of how to select your header row and wrap text, okay? Freezing your top row, justify column width, applying your filters, and then like I said before, which is the whole a much more easier way you can do, you can use a macro, and I believe Rebecca, you put a pretty good email out earlier in terms of how to navigate your Excel file in terms of using the macro. I forget the email that you sent out, but that was pretty good information that you used there. Okay. And the reports we'll be basically reviewing, we have here on the next column here, which is your FT detail report, your FT adjustment report, your partial enrollment funded gifted, student report, which is your 006 report, resident student educated, elsewhere report, which is your enrolled 001. Okay. Any questions so far before we proceed? And a lot of you guys, I know this is repetitive, but this is the presentation or whatnot that we have. It's not much updates from the previous year, but it's just good to kind of go over all this to kind of give you guys a reminder here. Okay. So for your FTE adjustment report, and this is going to be your FTED 003 report, okay? This is a subset of the FTE detail report, okay? This is going to contain students who have an adjusted FTE. The result codes and descriptions indicate an issue causing an adjustment. The adjustment start and end dates help to identify the time frame of the adjustment. So down below, if you guys are in your 003 report, you're going to see columns K and L, which is going to be your result code description. Okay, so in columns K, it's going to give you result code. L next to it is going to say your description. Now, for example, a lot of times it's good to read those descriptions because as EMIS coordinators, whenever we see a result code, and it's not to our liking, the first thing we want to do is we look at the result code, but sometimes we don't look at the description. The description, a lot of times, is going to tell you what that result code is. Okay, so from columns L, you'll see, for example, in the first column there where it has the FT 0031, it says withdrawal, no attendance. Okay. So what we want to do is just make sure for that particular student that we go back and say, hey, what's going on with this particular kid that's saying, this give me this result code. And a lot of times we can navigate those issues. They're pretty much kind of open and shut. Others going to kind of require some digging, and that requires basically a village, which including your enrollment department, whether it be your special ed, whoever it is, that you guys can kind of get together and kind of get those errors resolved. Okay. On the far right column where you see columns S and T, that's going to be your adjustment start date and end date. A lot of times or whatnot, okay, we have kids who basically start late or they may start early depending on when they enroll, okay? Sometimes we have to adjust that start date depending on if they're coming from another district and when they have withdrawn their students, okay? And then in columns T, it gives the end date there, okay? So in column S and T, you have your adjustment start date and end date for columns T. K and L is going to give you your result code, and columns L, your description to that result code. Any questions on how to navigate this report here so far?
So far, so good.
All right. So for your FT adjustments and FTE detail, you want to review the FT adjustment report and the FTE detail report together to see the complete picture for a specific student. Okay. So in the FTE detail report, that contains the FTE that will be funded. Okay. This is your adjusted FTE. You'll see that there. Okay. And columns Q there for the FTE detail report, which they have screenshotted here. Okay. In columns Q. All right. Your FTE adjustment report contains the amount being adjusted, which is your adjusted FTE. So there's two reports here. You have your FTE detail report, which is your 00001 report, and then you have your FTE adjusted report. So it's two reports here that they're comparing. The first one is your detail report. The second one is your adjustment report. Okay. They're basically letting you guys know, okay, in terms of your FTE detail report, you can look at your adjusted FTE, which is the amount of funding generated. Okay. That would be in columns Q up top. Down below in your FTE adjustment report, you want to pay attention to columns R, which they have highlighted here. And that's going to be your adjusted FTE in terms of the amount of the FTE that was reduced. Okay. So column R is the adjusted FTE that was reduced up top. In columns Q, it's going to be what's being generated for the FTE. Okay. That's a simple way of finding out, okay, how much is this district getting paid for? You know, if there's anything I need to fix, if you guys may feel that there's a date wrong or anything like that, you guys can go to that particular student and just kind of see if there's any issues going on with that. If you guys are not feeling that you're getting the full FTE or just the maximum amount of credit for that particular student. Okay. These reports are also good in terms of if your treasurer or anybody comes to you and say, hey, what's going on with these students here? Why are we not getting the full FTE? Okay. You can explain to them, well, look, they came in the middle of the year. They came at this time. They came at this time. So it's a whole different bunch of variables that, you know, that can come into play when you're not getting the full FTE. So these reports are kind of, you know, a good helpful way for you guys to navigate if you have any issues as to wondering why a student is not getting their full FTE there. Okay. So these next slides will review each adjustment and possible resolutions. Okay. So down below, you will see columns K, which is your result code. If you guys are on your FTE 003 report, and Shelly just let me know if they can just locate their result code section there. Let me know if they're having any issues with that.
Good.
They're good.
Mhm.
We're all good.
Yep.
Okay, great. Great. So when you're highlighting columns K in the result code, you're going to see a whole slew of result codes, okay? And like I said before, you can use your sort or whatnot, or you know, your macro first and your sort. And basically what will happen is you can basically see all the result codes that they have listed here. Okay. Some of these adjustments are not fixable and will also remain on the report. So that's also important to highlight as well. Like I said, EMIS coordinators, we want to try to get everything, I mean, as close to the grain as possible. And I know sometimes it's frustrating when you see a critical or you see a warning and you're saying, hey, what's going on with this? Can I get this situation fixed? So for a lot of these result codes, you can get these resolved. For some, they are not fixable. And we'll go over these adjustments here shortly. Okay, so for your FT 0001 adjustment over one FTE. Now, for a lot of you EMIS coordinators, a lot of you guys may see this here in terms of on your warnings there, okay? And columns K on your report. This is just breaking down a description of each result code and what it means for your district, okay? So when you filter this on for your adjustment over one FTE, this is when multiple districts report enrollment for a student and there are no overlapping enrollment dates. So for example, if the total FTE for the fiscal year is greater than one, an adjustment is made to the student's FTE for the district reporting the latest enrollment date. Okay, so you want to go ahead and basically how you resolve these codes here. There's a couple examples that they've given to you guys that you guys can navigate through these issues here. That would be reviewing your ODEX SOAS, okay, which basically just going to ODEX and reviewing your SOAS data, reviewing your records, and also reviewing your SCR for enrollment dates, okay? Note that the districts cannot see how much of a student's total FTE has been used by each entity. Okay, so basically how to navigate through this warning here, you want to just check ODEX. review your records, okay, just to make sure that there's something that wasn't overlooked. Maybe enrollment, enrolled this kid at this date here, and you may have a district that's saying, hey, look, we have this kid to this particular date. So it may kind of, overlap or whatnot. So just like I said before, checking these records can ensure, good data down the road, okay? So here they give an over one FTE example, okay? A full-time student is enrolled at District A from the start of their school year, then withdraws and subsequently enrolls at District B. So for District A, based on enrollment dates, will receive part of the student's one FTE for the school year. District B, based on enrollment dates, will receive no more than the remaining of the student's one FTE for the school year. A district can use can use up a disproportionate amount of the student's one FTE prior to enrolling at a subsequent district. An adjustment will be made to District B's FTE in the case where the enrollment periods are generating more than one FTE. So basically, this is a situation where you have a student that, say, for example, enrolled in District A, and let's just say they withdrew, I'm going to say October 3rd, right? So from the start date to October 3rd, that District A will get that funding in that particular time frame. If they go to District B from October 4th on, they will get the remaining of that FTE. Okay. So that's it's about as simple breakdown as I can use. I'm pretty sure that a lot of you guys in that room have pretty much kind of filtered through your FT 0001 issues. Has anybody in the room been having any issues as of late with the over one FTEs?
I don't know, but we have several.
Yeah, I don't like them.
No.
And everybody's been
I do
withdrawn
too.
correctly.
I
so
have several,
don't
so-
understand.
You have them at Oracle too?
Yeah, that's why I was getting an ODEX check.
They're new, they're relatively new.
Over one
So like Lori and I have two kids, siblings, and she withdrew them like she was supposed to and. They started, so why would that?
I got 23 on my report.
You're the winner.
Wow, 23? Well, you're so big too.
That's it.
Yeah, that's why.
That's totally it.
Does Iowa have
Oh, yeah.
0001?
Hang on just a second. Oh, yeah.
So
But a
Jen-
lot of them are like,
You're.
oh, FT,
So
not
if
FT.
there's a school district that say starts August 1st, and then the student is there from August 1st to Christmas break, say end of December, and then starts new school in January, and that school didn't start their school year till September, after Labor Day. Would that cause it to give a lot less FTE to the second school because they're gonna run longer? You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, I definitely hear
Is
what you're
that
saying.
affected at all?
No, that should not affect it at all. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, it shouldn't have any bearing on that, to be honest with you. Anytime, so for example, I was trying to listen to you ladies in the room. So are you saying that, for example, you're withdrawing a student and then it's still basically giving you guys an over one FTE still? I just was trying to read the room. I'm sorry.
I do have one on the 03.
Yeah, so Veronica said, or wait, Lori has 20. Lori withdrew kids that went to Triway
Mm-hmm.
and they're showing,
Mm-hmm.
and they're showing up on hers is over
Yes.
one FTE.
And I have two siblings with Wayndale that they were their residents, they opened and enrolled, and two girls just moved to our district, so Jerry and I were supposed to, one sister is on here.
One of them, but not the other.
No, yeah.
That's weird. Now, I did see, ladies, that there was a ticket yesterday, and I'm gonna go ahead and put that in a mass email for you guys when we're done. There was an issue with an FT 0001 issue where Veronica, you were just mentioning, and they kind of gave an explanation as to how they're calculating those over one FTEs or whatnot. So I'll share that with you guys. Now, listen, it's OD's way of saying how they handle this. So maybe that kind of give you some better clarification. But I'm going to share that with you guys once we get off here. And I was going to put that in my chronicles too. I mean, like I said, it's just an explanation from them explaining how they calculate their over one FTEs and basically how they divide them up amongst districts, if that helps.
Sure, if everybody else's are, all of mine are kids that came to us second semester.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I'll go ahead and share that, and it's coming straight from them. So maybe that kind of give you some guys, give you guys a little bit more clarity on that situation there.
Yeah, all of mine are second semester enrollments.
Most of mine are move-in kids.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what moved in,
yeah.
not necessarily second semester.
Mine just.
Okay.
Couple of mine are kids that have been.
Time.
Mine.
Okay, so what I'll do is, like I said, they gave a pretty long description on the ticket, and I'll share that with you guys to kind of give you guys a better, clarification of how they determine, their over one FTEs and if that'll help in terms of, who's getting what per district.
I recall last year when I was looking at this, it would be cases where a student would enroll and they'd have a start date of like October 1st, but then we had to adjust that. And these were the adjustments that were showing up on this report on that. Like something we can't get rid of, but we changed the enrollment date. So they had to adjust the FTE.
Right.
Last year.
Okay. So, like I said before, I'll provide that. It was, like I said, it was one or two tickets that there were some districts in the state that were having, the same exact issues that you guys are bringing up. So I'll share that with you guys. And it's all, I think they'll be helpful for you guys. So another example they give for over one FTE, okay, and this adjustment can also occur within the same district. If student is enrolled in building A, then leaves building A to attend building B, building A's calendar has a different start or end date than building B's calendar. Okay. This situation could generate an FT00001 adjustment. Okay. So you want to verify that enrollment and calendar data. I'm sorry, does someone have a question? I'm sorry before I went on.
No, I forgot to mute, so you were.
Okay. All right. So if this information is incorrect, you can also make corrections pertaining to the enrollment. And if this is correct, then you can just ignore the adjustment. And that's just one of the issues that I know some of the districts were having in the state where they were getting these actual adjustments. But it's like I said, there's nothing you can really do because if a district has their, open and start date set in stone and they leave or whatnot, building A, then go to building B, there's really nothing that you can do within that same district. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like a slippery slope there when it comes to how they, determine these over one FTE examples here. Okay. But this example is basically showing within the same district and how you would navigate this particular issue. Okay. For your FT 00002, adjustment overlapping dates. Okay. So basically, when you filter on your result code, and this is going to be for your FT 00002, this is going to be a warning or critical or fatal depending on the amount of the adjustments. Okay. This generally happens when a student is enrolled in two districts at the same time. Okay. Or when how to receive or sent to codes are being reported incorrectly. For days that overlap, the student's percent of time is set to 0 and the FTE is recalculated. So basically, how they're basically showing you guys on how to navigate through this particular adjustment. You want to review your ODEX SOAS data, your SCR, and records for overlapping enrollment dates or incorrect coding, and work with other LEAs to resolve the issue. Now, anytime you have overlapping dates or whatnot, this is just a matter of, like I said before, it could be to when the student enrolled or when that particular student withdrew. Okay. Sometimes you get the EPCT errors or whatnot, which will kind of give you guys a pretty good heads up in terms of, hey, this district has them starting on this date. So you guys want to go ahead and make your adjustments there. Or you may have a district that says, hey, look, this student withdrew September 30th, and we have them on the books in attendance till September 30th. And another district that they're going to may say, look, we're enrolling the kid on September 29th. So that's an issue where you can just contact the district and say, look, I got attendance and they're going to September 30th. So you're going to have to make your adjustment. Okay. So that's just a matter of a phone call and just communication. And a lot of times with this error, this can just be cleared up or whatnot, in terms of with the dates, depending on, when that kid withdrew or when the kid enrolled. So I'm pretty sure, have a lot of you guys been seeing this error or whatnot, or is just more the over one FTE?
Zero two.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
have one on my
I'm
003
waiting
report.
Okay. Now, is that just a situation where it's just the dates are just overlapping, or you know what I mean, just where that could be, made with an adjustment?
It could be, I'm gonna have to go back and look at the students' records
Okay.
and see, because I've got adjustment start date of 8/20. And I
Okay.
have an adjustment end 8/21, and we did have two students that basically they were there technically one day, and
Oh
that
wow.
was it.
Oh wow. Okay.
And
Oh wow.
then the other one is flagging an FT 0031.
Okay, and that's the result code you received?
Yeah, withdrawal, no attendance.
Okay, and we'll touch on that as well in here as well. So I'm
Because,
glad you brought that up.
yeah, she withdrew also on 8/21, so she never even came into classes because she signed up at the beginning of the year on 7/1, and then that was it
Okay,
on
gotcha.
8/21.
Okay, gotcha. And we'll go over that as well to basically help you kind of navigate through that issue as well. So any other issues in terms of adjustment overlapping dates? Anybody in the room there? Quiet, so. So here they just given an overlapping dates example. Okay. So student was enrolled at District A from August 12th to March 21st, then enrolled at District B on March 17th, which created a 5-day overlap in enrollment. Okay. So for the 5 overlapping days, neither district will be funded, and both districts will see an adjustment to their FTE. FTEs for both entities are reduced for that span of the overlap. So correcting this overlap will adjust the FTE values to fund the student for the appropriate amount of time. So, like I mentioned before, okay, anytime you basically withdraw a kid, let's just say like they have the kid withdrew March 21st, right? But then on District B, they have them enroll March 17th. So for a 5-day period, no one's getting funded, right? So that's just a matter of just communicating with the other district and just kind of saying, hey, look, can you adjust your enrollment date to the 22nd? I have attendance on the books from August 12th to March 21st, right? And that's just a matter of a phone call and just getting those dates pretty much cleared up. Now, you may have other districts that may say, look, I don't believe you. And trust me, that happens a lot. Okay. So that's just a matter of getting your information to them and just making sure you're just transparent with that. So they can just basically see, look, this is what it is. This is what we have them on the books for. And so that date can be adjusted. But like I said before, that's just a matter of communication, really. So that basically all the districts there can get the appropriate funding for that due time. Okay. So, like I said before, does it happen a lot? Yes. Does it happen to where the error can get cleared up with communication? Absolutely. But like I said, you'll be surprised. Some districts will hold on to that enrollment date and they don't care what you say. So that's just a matter of, like I said before, just providing the data that you can to let them know, when the student was there in your district. So those dates can be adjusted accordingly. Okay. For your FT0003, this is your adjustment percent of time on overlapping dates. Okay. So this is going to be considered a critical error with due or ODE. This occurs when a student is enrolled at multiple entities and the percent of time exceeds 100%. Okay. An adjustment is made for the access percent of time reported. The percent of time will be reduced at the reporting entities for the portion that exceeds 100%. Often this occurs when there are changes to enrollment between districts and JVSs at the change of the course term. So you want to look at your ODEX records and SCR for the percent of time reported by each entity and consult the other LEA to reconcile the data. Okay. This is just a matter of getting the basically the percent of time, basically, between each district. You want to make sure that you guys are on the same page so that, for example, this error does not come up or whatnot. And that's just like I said, all these errors, the majority of them is just a matter of communication. A lot of times I know with EMIS coordinators, our lives are hectic and it's just crazy all around. And you're saying, hey, look, I may not have time to deal with this or whatnot on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But a simple phone call during the week, and I know a lot of you guys know each other, will get a lot of these issues cleared up. Okay. If there's any issues that you may have, you have references of ODEX and your SCR to go back on to review this data to make sure that, hey, we have this kid here for the percent of time. Can you just see what you have on your end? And that's just a matter, like I said before, of a phone call and just communication on district's parts. Okay. Any issues you guys have been having with this report here? Anybody in the room?
Good year.
So I kind of give an example here of what this result code represents. If a student was reported by the resident district and the JVS as educating the student at the same time, the JVS reports the student as 20% of the time, while the sending district reports the student as 86% of the time. Both entities will see an adjustment to the student's FTE for the access percent of time that brings the student's total funded FTE to 1. In this example, one or both entities should adjust their percent of the time so that it does not exceed 100%. So this is basic math here. So if you see a student here at the JVS with 20% of the time, and the other district is saying it's 86, that would be a matter of adjusting that 86 to 80 there, so it does not exceed the 100%. Okay, so that's, like I said before, a matter of just making sure you get with the JVS or whatnot to say, hey, what percent of time that you guys have, and just basically making your adjustments from there. Okay. Adjustment disability not funded. Now, this result code comes up a lot here. So for those who are having this issue here, this information will be pretty vital to you guys. This occurs when a student with a disability is reported without an active IEP in place. This impacts special education weighted funding and not the base FTE, so keep that in mind. Whenever you have special ed funding, there's two funding patterns. So you have your special ed and then you have your base FTE. Okay, so anytime there's an adjustment on the disability, you'll see that impact on the special ed part, not the base. Okay. For JVSs and ESCs, they are dependent on the district of residence or sending districts to report the special education events. Okay. Be sure all students with disabilities have active IEPs in place that are reported to EMIS. You want to report an NIEP special education event if the situation qualifies. Now, NIEPs, for those students who are getting IEPs late after the certain date, you guys are aware that you guys have to get your IEPs or your initials or your reevaluations in by, I believe it's October 31st. And you guys can jump in and say, hey, Tim, that's wrong. That date's wrong. But I believe it's the 31st. Do I have that right there in the room? I believe that's it, right?
That's correct.
Right. So anytime that you have anything after that date, I always want to say pinpoint your later year, your later months. So for example, I know your special ed department may not get to a kid, let's just say in late May, right? Well, you also know that basically it's the end of the year. And a lot of times with ODE, sometimes they do not recognize those IEP events. Okay. So if it goes into the summer and into the following year, a lot of times ODE will say, hey, this student does not have a disability. That's a matter of just doing an NIEP for that time being so your district can get the funding. That's the key thing. You guys want to make sure that you guys are getting funded for all your special ed students. So if there's a situation where you have the no IEP and you know for sure, and your special ed department has said, hey, look, we basically tested this kid during this date, we evaluated this kid during this date or whatnot, and it's later on in the year when the school year basically is over, that following year, you want to make sure that NIEP is in place. It doesn't mean that you're out of compliance. It doesn't mean that you guys have done something wrong. It just means that you want to get your funding for the time being until that NIEP can be adjusted. Have you guys been having any issues with that, or are your IEPs pretty much cleared up?
Yeah, we have some that, the scenario you described, they didn't get updated before October 31st. And I'm getting the error message, disability, no IEP. So how do I do the NIEP to get the funding?
Now, I'm gonna tell you this right now. If they do an IEP after the date, right? You can set that
Right.
IEP up. You can set that IEP up, okay, or whatnot. Let's say, for example, you can do the NIEP, right, for a short time period until that evaluation is done. When that evaluation is done, then you can put those dates in. You see what I'm saying? And like I said before, like
Yes.
it's nothing that your special ed department does that's wrong. I just so don't, I know sometimes special ed and EMIS coordinators, you're like, look, I need this data so the district can get funding because there's pressure from all angles, right? So you just want to make sure that
Right, and there's
right, exactly. So you just want to make sure when you get that information that you go ahead and record it for the time being. If you know that that student has an IEP and the special ed department just hasn't got around to it or whatnot, in terms of the reevaluation or whatnot, enter in that NIEP until you got some clarity, and then that way at least your district can still get the funding for that kid. You know what I'm
okay,
saying?
thank you for that.
No
And
problem.
then I have another question.
Yes.
When a student moves off of their IEP to a 504, I'm also getting a couple of those flagging as disability, no IEP. So what do I do about that?
So if they're moving off of that, you just want to make sure that you put the end date in place, okay, whenever you get that,
Yes,
okay, because you are well aware they cannot get funded or it won't. So what happens is when you submit your data in the data collector, it won't, it'll say, hey, look, they can't be on a 504 and IEP at the same time, right? You'll get that
right.
error there. So what you want to do is just make sure when you get that data, okay, just make sure you put the end date in
Mhm.
place and update your FD attributes, or I don't know if you have same goal, you can just import that from them, okay? And at
I
least,
do both.
okay, great. So once the FD attributes tab is updated, then you can just go ahead and just put that 504 in, and then it shouldn't be any conflict where you see what I'm saying, where it's saying, hey, look, it's still you got a 504 and an IEP at the same time, which we know you can't have at the same time, right? So once you import your data,
Right.
put your 504 in, and you should be okay after that. Your end dates.
All right, thank
Also, same goal, a lot of times you have to do, there's a 504 discontinuation form. You have to sign to get the 504 thing to go away in there, because same goal's still thinking you have a 504 and an IEP, so when you submit your data over,
Mhm.
it's still pulling both. So if you get that 504 discontinuation and complete it, it'll make that 504 designation go away
Okay,
and then rerun your FD, and that might be what your problem is.
so hang on just a second. Same
Yeah.
goals, 504 discontinuation.
Yes. And once that gets completed, that will take the 504 thing out of sample. That's what I've noticed work. like that.
Thank you
So,
so
no problem.
much.
And Mary.
Yes.
ODE posted a NIEP reporting video. So if you go to their EMIS trainings, the NIEP reporting here, it's a YouTube video that they recorded. So if you just Google search EMIS trainings, then you'll be able to find those videos.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Any,
Any
anybody
other
else?
questions, guys? Because I know this is a vital result code that a lot of people get. And, you know, if there's any questions you guys have, feel free to ask.
And then just to double check, preschoolers are not eligible for funding, correct?
Well, preschoolers are eligible for funding if they have special ed or whatnot, and say, for example, you guys have done, you know, for just special ed, okay? Like I
Right,
said,
I just mean the kiddos.
yeah, like, are you talking about just preschool? Well, just like I said, if you guys
Yeah,
preschool
typical
kiddos,
preschoolers.
yeah, okay. So preschoolers works as follows. If you guys have private pay, of course, you guys don't get any funding for that, right? The only funding that you guys get for preschoolers is for special ed, and if they're on the grant, okay?
Okay,
Those two funding patterns for preschoolers. All
all
right.
right, then I'm good there.
Okay. So on your level 2 reports, you'll generally see kid not fund. I forget the error code. I have a brain freeze right now, but you'll see no funding for that particular kid. A lot of times, 9 times out of 10, those are your preschool kids. Okay. And like I said, if they don't have a grant attached to them or any special ed attached to them, there is no funding for them. Right. So those funding patterns start in kindergarten moving forward.
All righty, NFRG is the code I'm getting for the preschoolers that are typical and no grant money involved.
Correct.
Is that the right code to have
Correct.
there?
Correct. So you'll see an error for that, but you can just ignore them because you know that those students are just preschool, you know, they're regular preschool students, and they're not going to have any funding attached to them unless they're probably just doing a private pay with you guys or wherever the case may be.
Okay, thank
Mhm.
you. I just wanted to make doubly sure.
Oh, no problem. No problem at all. So on the next slide here, and this is just your adjustment disability not funding example. Okay, this impacts special education weighted funding and not the base FTE. So you have two reports that they're shown on the screenshot. The first one is going to be from your FTE adjustment report. Okay, that's the 003 report. If you look all the way over in column R, you're going to see the adjusted FTE for that particular student. Okay. Now down below, you're going to see your FTE detail report. This is your 001 report in your level 2 reports. Down on column R, you're going to see the adjusted special ed FTE. Okay. So for your adjustment that appears in the adjusted FTE report, okay, it reduces the the adjusted special ed CAT FTE. So basically what this basically is meaning is this, okay? When you guys do your special ed funding or whatnot for preschoolers, or let's just say whoever it is, it could just be preschool, KG, all the way up, right? Whenever you guys do your dates or your reevaluations, that's when your FTE starts for those special ed kids. Now, keep in mind, your base FTE is not touched. That's set in stone. Your special ed FTE will begin when that IEP starts or that reevaluation IEP starts, right? So if you have a transfer IEP, a reevaluation IEP, an initial IEP, whenever your special ed department gets those dates to you, that's when that actual IEP starts. And that's when your funding starts. If, say, for example, you have it starting on 9/17, okay? But the IEP from the previous year ended 9/10, you're going to have a gap of no funding because that IEP was not established within that particular time. So there's a space there. So you're going to see an adjusted FTE for special ed. Does that make sense to everybody in the room there? I know some of you veterans are pretty much familiar with this, but I just want to kind of explain it in kind of like layman's terms there, if that makes sense. No questions? Now, when it's quiet, I'm scared because I don't know if that's an okay or not. Are we cool, Shelly?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, cool. So just want to kind of throw that out there. Okay. Now, for your adjustment students who are 22 or older, This is going to be your FT 0007 warning. If a student is age 22 or older on the effective start date, admission date, or school year start date, whichever is later, the student is not eligible to be funded. Keep that in mind. An FTE adjustment will occur that reduces the FTE for the student to 0. So you want to verify the student's age and enrollment dates. And if the data is accurate, the error is informational. Okay. And no FTE will be generated for this student. Okay. So for any of you guys in your district that are having, students over 22 or whatnot, just like I said, keep in mind that the FTE adjustment will occur that reduces the FTE for the student to 0. Okay. So like I said before, that's just a matter of verifying the student's age. If the student is a legit 22, there's nothing you can do. Okay. So we all know that basically for that particular student, there'll be no funding there. Okay. So you'll just get a warning, right? There's nothing you can really do. Like I said, you can't help what a student's age is. It is what it is there. For adjustment result code, and this is FT 0009. This is informational. This happens when, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Hold on.
Okay, I have a kindergartner who's 6 years old and I'm getting that error message.
Oh, wow. Now there is
Or-
a cut. Yeah, now there is a cutoff for, is this for preschool or kindergarten?
Kindergarten.
Now for kindergarten, I believe there is a cutoff. Oh gosh, I don't remember the date offhand, where they have to be.
No, I remember looking it up and seeing the date, so yeah, I just can't
Yeah.
remember what it is.
Yeah, so what I can do is, and who am I talking to? So I won't feel bad in saying your name or what. I'm so sorry.
Talking to the problem child.
Mary.
No, no, you're fine. So, Mary, what I'll do is I have that in one of my EMIS Chronicles. I can shoot that your way when we're done here.
Oh, that'd
I'll
be
give
great.
you the dates in terms of for kindergartners. I believe it's a certain time frame that they will be counted, and then after that they won't. So I'll shoot that information to you.
Thank you so much.
No problem. So for your FT 0009, and this is for your adjustment negative FTE adjustment. Okay, so this usually occurs when multiple FTE adjustments for a student result in a negative total FTE. An adjustment is generated that brings the total FTE to 0. This happens if the student data is being reported correctly. This adjustment is informational. Okay. So, for example, if the information you guys are reporting is true and basically up to date, like I said, the adjustment for you guys is just going to be informational. Okay. So, a lot of times with these particular result codes, if you have the information reported and it's pretty much kind of showing you this result code here, it's nothing much that you guys can do. It's just one of those things where you just kind of lock it in the chest and keep it there, okay, until otherwise, unless something else comes up, that's just pretty much informational for the time being, okay? This typically occurs, like say, for example, if a student may have multiple adjustments that take the FTE into negative, the adjustment will bring it back to 0. So if you have any students or whatnot that have multiple adjustments a lot of times or whatnot, it'll put the FTE in a negative, okay? And then if you process your data, 9 times out of 10, it will bring the adjustment back to 0. These are rare cases that these come up, okay? Have any of you guys been having this particular result code come up for you guys this year?
I don't think anybody has this one.
Yeah, like I
No,
said,
maybe
it's rare. Okay, great. Your FT 0014 adjustment preschooler at district of residence in ESC. So these adjustments are for preschoolers who attend 2 different entities. Okay. For your district of residence, which is what the DOR represents in your ESC, your service centers, situations when the following is reported. District of residence reports the preschool student as sent to ES, and both district of residence and ESC report the preschool student as educated, okay, greater than 0%. And both district of residence and ESC report the DN record element indicated yes, funds should be transferred to the ESC. Now, this particular result code, I know districts don't have this result code a lot, Okay. This is just kind of giving a breakdown if this result code were to occur. I'm pretty sure in the room, have you guys even during this year encountered this result code? Like I said, this is another rare result code that kind of pops up in the level 2 reports. Has anybody encountered this during the year?
Not yet.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, it's rare. Okay. So, if this situation were to occur, an adjustment is also created for preschoolers who attend two different traditional districts or who attend both an ESC and a county board of developmental disabilities. Okay. So, this would pretty much would apply pretty much to Tracy and ESC for the most part here. And if some of you guys haven't been having this there, like I said, I wouldn't worry about that here. So for your result codes, FT0029, this is informational. This is a new code that will be used for uncommon situations where a due needs to create a manual adjustment that does not fit well under one of the existing override result codes. Okay. So for example, a situation in FY25. There's a change in the law last year in FY24 that allowed students to enrolled in an industry credential only program at a dropout prevention and recovery school to be funded as if they were full time. In this situation, the student is enrolled both at a DROP, dropout recovery school, and the JVS. Dues FT process does not account for this scenario. For this year, FY25, due must correct these manually, checking periodically and creating override adjustments as needed. Next year, due will incorporate this into the normal FTE process. So basically, this is kind of like a trial run for this result code here. Okay. So they're going to be making adjustments manually this year, next year for any students that you guys may have. And I don't know if dropout recovery is prevalent up there. I know down here we have a lot of them, dropout recovery schools. This would apply to this particular situation. Okay. I'm pretty sure up there, do you guys have any dropout recoveries up there? I don't think you guys do. Do you guys by any chance?
I mean, I know like Ashland West Homes, you guys do it within the thing.
Yeah.
I don't,
Okay, okay. But there hasn't been any situations where I don't believe, and is Vicky there? I don't think that result code's been on hers from what I've seen. Okay. So, like I said before, that's just a new trial that they're doing, and then they're going to go ahead and reinforce that for next year. So I just wanted to kind of share that. So Vicky, just kind of tuck away slide 29 for just your personal records for next year. Um, FT, and this is your 0030. This is adjustment scholarship programs. Okay. This happens here for the adjustment for overlapping dates with the scholarship program. Okay. The adjustment report will show the student's enrollment at the district with no reference to the scholarship provider. Districts may need to contact the scholarship program to resolve the issue. And if the issue cannot be resolved, just put a ticket in with us and then we can just go ahead and just submit it up to due. And this would pretty much just kind of go into the category of the John Peterson Scholarship there, or any type of grants that a student's receiving. You may receive this code for that particular student. Okay. And just let us know. And then we can have due look into it because there's been a lot of issues or whatnot with the John Peterson in terms of funding and all that other good stuff there. So if you have any issues with that, just let us know. So adjustment withdrawal with no attendance. Earlier, I know this situation was brought up or a question was brought up. Okay. And this is considered a warning. Okay. And this occurs when a student is withdrawn during the school year with no attending hours. Not applicable to students withdrawn with a code 81 student reported an error. So you want to verify the student's withdrawal situation and attendance and make sure that those are correct. Remember that a newly enrolled student cannot be absent before they attend at least one day. Okay. So I know who was in the room that had this particular situation here.
Me, Mary.
Okay. So no, so what I'll do is, and I have some scenarios that I have from a training, Mary, that I can share with you that'll probably kind of help you navigate through that or whatnot. I just want to just go and I can just email that to you.
Okay, that'd be great.
All right. So for FT 0032, adjustment not eligible for funding, okay? This adjustment occurs when the student is not eligible for funding, okay? Most common occurrences is for a preschool student without a disability, which will result in a fund code that is non-fundable, okay? And Mary, that would apply to what we discussed earlier with the NFRG, okay? This could occur when a student is incorrectly coded, which will result in a fund pattern code that is non-fundable. Like I said before, the only two funding patterns preschool students will get is for special ed and for the grant, okay? And this can occur when a student is court foster placed from out of the state, okay? Which if the district residence will equal to the straight nines that you guys are familiar with. So you want to verify that the preschool students with this adjustment do not have a disability. If a student is school age, you want to use your ODEX records to verify the student's standing, which is your FS coding, is correct between LEAs. So this is just letting you guys know. You guys can go into your FS standing tab and just want to make sure that this information is properly inputted, which a lot of you guys are pretty much on top of things or whatnot. But this is just letting you know if you receive this fund code pattern for preschoolers, 9 times out of 10 is for, like I said, students without a disability or without a grant pattern or whatnot. You'll see that warning. Doesn't mean that your information is wrong. It just means that, hey, for preschoolers without those particular two um, funding patterns, you'll see it. It doesn't mean its information is wrong. It's just going to show that there. Okay. For your FT 0033, this is your adjustment for JVS students, grade 5 and below. Okay. So in your FT adjustment, okay, for your JVS students in grade 5 and below, this can also appear as an adjustment for districts of residence, sending districts. You want to verify the student's grade level, and if grade 5 or below, the adjustment should be ignored. Now, I don't know if you guys have had any cases where you guys have had JVS students at grade 5 and below. Have you? If so, they must be like Einsteins because I haven't even encountered that before.
Not yet.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've never even seen that. Okay. So this is kind of just touching base. If you guys were to have this situation, this slide just kind of details or whatnot what you were to do if that actual result code were to come up. Okay. For your FT 0034, and this is your CTE at an Ohio Technical Center. Okay. This could occur for any LEA type that reports students in this situation. You want the adjustment for the students who take career tech courses at an OTC that pushes the student beyond full-time status. Sent 2% of time reported with the TC sent reason will not get included in the base FT calculation. This FT will be added as a positive FT adjustment, and you want to watch for additional information on this adjustment. I'm pretty sure for CT and Vicky, you can just jump in any time and say, Tim, I've never seen this before, but I don't think that you guys even had this code come up for you guys at all, have you?
No.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, so a lot of these are new and they're pretty kind of newly implemented. So, like I said, I know next year they're going to be kind of, focusing hard on certain result codes, but this is kind of giving you a foundation to kind of what to look for later on. So adjustment to Board of Developmental Disabilities, okay? This is when resident districts sending students to a Board of Development Disabilities, or in short, BDD, must report the sent to reason of MR. BDDs also submit data to do that is compared to data submitted to EMIS by districts. An FT adjustment may result if the district and BDD data do not match. So if both entities are reporting that they are educating, the over one FTE adjustment would apply, which goes back to the 001 result code. In situations where students are being educated part-time at the BDD and part-time at JVS or the traditional districts, if total percent of time adds up to more than 100%, the percent of time on overlapping dates adjustment would apply. Okay, and that would be your result code of 003. Now, A lot of you guys don't see this here. A lot of you guys don't have this particular situation. If this were to pertain to your district moving forward, this slide here will be very good as a reference to use, okay? And these situations that they're bringing up, these are very rare occurrences, okay? So I don't think that you guys have experienced these here lately, but that situation will occur. These are steps that you take there, okay? This is troubleshooting the FTE adjustment reports, and this is for community and STEM schools only. I'm going to skip this because this is for community schools, and we do not have any community schools in the room, I believe. Correct, Shelley? I don't want to touch on something and this doesn't even pertain to them. Yeah, so I'm going to skip this here. And like I said, this is for community schools here. Any questions you guys may have for the stuff that I did go over in the room? For Veronica, Lori, anybody? So for a quick check here, this is just a review of what we went over so far. Are there any adjustments that are correctable? If there's any adjustment that you guys may feel, whether it be the overlapping dates or anything to the occurrence, okay, that's just a matter of communication and checking in with other districts to make sure that your dates align, you know, into where you guys can get the funding. Some adjustments can occur based on another reporting entity's data, which I just touched based on, okay? So if you need to contact another LEA, like I said, feel free to do so. FTE adjustment reports should be checked regularly and frequently, even when your data hasn't changed. I would suggest checking it once a week. If you guys have enough time, twice a week, just to make sure that everything is set up properly and that, like I said, you can keep yourself at ease, the treasurer happy, and that way it kind of funnels down. So if the treasurer is happy, the superintendent's going to be joyous or whatnot. The EMIS coordinators, it gives you peace of mind, right? So if you're checking those adjustment reports, if nothing changes, you can say, hey, look, everything hasn't changed from the last board meeting that you guys have had or last check-in or whatnot. So if anything does change, like I said, just communicate to the proper channels to give your peace of mind. Any questions or whatnot so far, guys? Now we're halfway through. If you guys want to take a break or whatnot, we don't have pretty much to go over or whatnot, just a review. So this next part here, and this will be kind of a quick review here for most in the room, okay? This is going to be covering the FTE detail report, which is your 001 report, and your partial enrollment funded gifted student report, which is your 006 report. Both of these reports can be located in the data collector on the level 2 under show reports, okay? Generally, the first report you'll see is the 001 report, which is your FTE detail. And then you have down below your partial funded gifted student report, which is your 006 report, okay? So for your FTE detail report, okay, this contains student FTE data with related EMIS data, okay? All this information is going to be taken from the information that you submit in Gradebook or in SIS or in Dazzle, however you guys want to call it, okay? Once that information is processed and basically in due system, you will see these reports in your level 2, okay? All of these FTE detail report data should be reviewed for accuracy, which is a lot of you guys already are aware of. Data issues can exist that do not generate errors. So for example, when a student has no FTE adjustment, their base FTE, weighted funding elements, or other data could still be incorrect. Okay, these upcoming slides we'll discuss the data elements contained in the report and suggest ways to verify the data. We will also briefly discuss the 006 partial enrollment funded gifted report in this section. Okay, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to stop me. Like I said, for some of you there in the room, this should be a review for you guys. Okay, if you guys have any questions, like I said before, just let me know.
Hold on, we have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm in the data collector and I'm looking at the FTED reports and I have 001, 003. I don't have 006, but
It's up. It's up. It's up like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you see it? Yeah, they're not in numerical order.
Okay, no, I don't have it. Not at all. Unless I'm looking at the mid-year student collection.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have
Uh-huh.
any.
So do you guys not have any
Oh, but I don't have that TED 006.
I get FTES 006, is that what we're looking
No, you.
And I know for a fact we have gifted students.
Okay, and this is for which districts is this for? I can look it up real quick.
Yeah. Who else said they didn't have it?
at? I don't think we know.
No, Veronica found it.
Okay.
No, I don't think I did.
You have the FTES.
Yeah, that, you're not looking at that, right?
No.
No, I.
Do they have to, have you guys done your mid-year submission?
Well, yeah, everyone has to do it for the traditional districts.
Oh, there it is. I'm a dork.
Okay. I was gonna go,
I need to go
I
home.
was coming for you.
I'm going home.
Yeah,
I
for
still don't see
Chippewa,
one.
and this is for Chippewa, right?
Of course.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
really
down
true.
here, which would be the FTES, yeah, this would be your students initially funded at district here. Let me see. Hold on here.
We don't see
Yeah, I don't see it either.
that. I mean, we don't see your screen. You're
Oh, I'm
referencing
sorry.
anything.
I'm sorry. Hold on here. I'm just kind of looking at Chippewa here to see if I'm even on the same page with you guys. Hold on here.
These are partially funded, so. did you
Yeah,
have
Mayor,
anything that
I
was
don't see where you even.
It's
Not so far.
That's what it is. So like I have for partial enrollment.
They're
So,
partial. Okay.
yeah, cause like I have 57, but I have a lot more than 57.
I have 44, I have more.
Okay.
Yeah,
What
so
is
these
this?
are like, like if you
Drop
never had
tables.
anyone that was never identified gifted and they
Tables.
took the NWA in the fall. And they got identified, they'd be on this list.
Okay.
Okay.
They were.
Right. I'm sorry, ladies. Did you have any identified at all during the year, Mary?
Not so far. We haven't gotten around to that yet.
Okay,
We're
so
still
that's
working
why.
with the kids.
Okay, so that would explain it then. Okay. So for the rest of you districts, you guys have that information there? I'm pretty sure you guys do, right?
It's too much to look on, personal.
So I'm pretty sure like everybody else in the room has it, right? They should have that report there for those who are identified. Okay, great. Okay, so maybe, yeah, that would explain why you don't have it there because there haven't been any identified as in right now. So, okay, so Shelley, we okay to move on? I just didn't want to like speed up or whatnot.
Yes, good.
Okay, great. So for, like I said before, we're going to go ahead and discuss these Rob, these two particular reports here. Okay. So here on this next slide, this just kind of gives you a breakdown on how to navigate through your report. Okay. So here, and you see here in the columns N and O, you will see two columns. You'll see your enrolled start date. Okay. And your enrolled end date. Generally, these are the latest of the FSFD effective start dates, which is going to be in Gradebook or SIS or Dazzle. So you want to go into your FS standing, okay, and see when the actual start date of these students occurred, or you can go into your FD attributes to see when that start date occurred, okay? So you have two tabs in SIS that you can check these actual start dates, okay? The end date is going to be basically, whenever they withdrew, that's going to be in your FS as well, FS standing screen, okay? So basically, this is kind of giving you a breakdown in terms of the enrollment date, the start date, okay? Like I said before, these are based off of your funding patterns. So for example, you want to just pay attention to these start dates and end dates because this can play a pivotal role in how your district is getting funded. Okay, so you just want to just verify that these dates align with what you guys have so far for the year. Okay. If there's any situations where they have to be adjusted, okay, anytime you're reviewing these reports weekly, you should be able to pinpoint and say, hey, look, I got this kid here, I don't know, Cornelius Davis, and he's saying enroll date of 8/22, but I know that's not right. He started 8/12, right? That's just an error that can be fixed, whether it could be with your enrollment department or whatever the case may be, right? So staying on top of this, like I said before, can kind of give you guys a good synopsis of how much you're going to get paid for the following year or for that current year. Excuse me, the current year, people. So down below, this is a screenshot of what you're looking at for your FTE detail report. Okay. This gives you a breakdown of exactly what you're going to be looking at once you click on that report, a breakdown of each column and what each column represents. Okay. So column A, of course, you got the IRNs of the LEA receiving the report. So that could be Worcester, it could be Triway, it could be Chippewa. Okay. Building IRN is going to be, for example, like I said before, the particular building that that student is in. Severity code. Now, down below, you'll see the information that could be in your severity code at any given time. It could be I for informational, C for critical, F for fatal. Okay. Anytime it's critical, you'll see an adjusted FTE, which is reduced, but not to zero. Okay. For fatal, it is adjusted FTE that is reduced to zero. So you want to keep an eye on your severity codes at all times when you're reading your FTE detail report. Okay. Columns D, you'll see your SSID for that particular student. Okay. And columns G, you'll see not available can appear for students your LEA is not reporting to EMIS, but whose funding flows through your district. Okay. So you want to pay attention to column G. Just make sure you're just glancing at it from time to time, making sure that's up to par and up to date there. Okay. For columns I, you'll see an LEA IRN is the IRN of the educating entity. Okay. So anytime you see that column I, you want to make sure that that information aligns as well. Okay. Just a basic report, nothing new, nothing fancy, just something that kind of gives you a basic breakdown of what to look out for pertaining to each one of your students in your buildings. Okay. I recommend, like I said, looking at this report weekly. If you have any questions or whatnot about this report, just feel free to ask at any time. But like I said, it's just a basic standard report that you can look at weekly just to determine, if your student information is good or not. So for your FT fund pattern codes, this is going to be in column M. So if you go to your FTE 001 report, okay, in columns M, you're going to see fund pattern codes, okay? This is EMIS data as reported or as derived are used in determining the FTE fund pattern code, which indicates the flow or of funding for that specific row of data. Another LEA's data can be used for students appearing on your report. It is possible for one student to have more than one FTE fund pattern code assignment when that student has multiple rows. So keep that in mind. If they have multiple rows, do not freak out. It is possible that they can have more than one funding pattern code. Okay. In the current funding model, certain situations allow funding to flow directly to the educating entity. Some FTE fund pattern codes may no longer appear on your report, such as open enrolled out students. Okay, so keep that in mind. You may not see some fund pattern codes, and that's okay. Okay, it could just be related to some sort of situation going on with the student. Like I said, doesn't necessarily mean that what you have reported is incorrect. It could just be appearing due to a certain situation. Okay. Any questions to the fund pattern code so far with any of you ladies in there?
Good, so far.
Great. So for DOR, which is short for District of Residence and Inclusion Codes, this is columns V and AG. So columns V and AG, if you scroll over, you should see those columns there in your 001 report there. District of Residence as reported to EMIS. Okay, this is column V. Inclusion Code, column AG. You'll see full, which is full FTE is included in the ADM of the district receiving the report. Part, you'll see that there in columns AG. This represents a portion of the FTE is included in the ADM of the district receiving the report. Okay, this could be resident students at a JVS. None of the FTE is included in the ADM of the district receiving the report. So for example, okay, if you have a special education cooperative student, okay, there would be full at district of residence and it would be none at educating entity, okay? So for example, if you see this report here, just let it, like I said, let it be known. If you're receiving the full, you're getting the full FTE. Part, of course, means partial. None, that would mean none at all, okay? Any questions to column AG? I know it's pretty self-explanatory, but if you have any issues or whatnot, any issues you may have been having, it's quiet, so I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Shelly, anything? Okay. So for base FTE and adjusted FTE, in columns P through R, you'll see columns P, which is your original FTE. Okay. In columns Q, you'll see your adjusted FTE. And then in columns R, you'll see adjusted special ed FTE. Okay. The adjusted FTE will be the original FTE minus adjustments from the FTE adjustment report. Okay. Keep in mind, that's that 003 report that we just went over earlier. The adjusted special education CAT FTE will indicate state weighted FTEs for students with disabilities minus any FT 0005 adjustments from the FTE adjustment report. So here it's just giving you a breakdown of original, adjusted to the original FTE, and then your spec ed adjusted FTE. Okay. And we're going to go over this here in the next couple of slides, but this kind of gives you a simple breakdown here. Okay. So for your base FTE calculation and how they calculate these FTEs, so just giving you a breakdown, okay? The base FTE or original FTE column, this is the numerator is the student's total enrolled hours multiplied by the student's percent of time. This is how they determine the base FTE. The denominator is the total instructional hours on the assigned calendar. And this information is calculated for each row on the report. Okay, so this, like I said before, nothing new, nothing special. This is just helping you to see how they determine your base FTEs. If the student is not withdrawn, the base FTE is calculated as though they will be enrolled through the last day of their calendar. Okay, so when a student is reported as withdrawn prior to the last day of their calendar, their base FTE is recalculated. So we all know if any withdrawals happen before the school year is out, that FTE is adjusted. Okay, so you'll see that adjustment on this report. Okay, so this is just kind of giving you guys a breakdown on how they determine the hours enrolled and basically compare that to the percent of time. Okay, and how they basically determine these FTEs here. All right, so for example, for full-time students, they kind of give you a breakdown here in terms of how those FTEs are basically calculated. You got it for full-time, half-time, which will be at 50%, of course, because it's half the time. Full-time students withdraw prior to the end of the year, and it kind of give you a breakdown there. So if they only attended there for 950 hours, that would be times 100%, and that's how they determine the FTEs. So these are all breakdowns on how they determine your FTEs on the report. Okay, very simple or whatnot. If you read your FTE 001 report and you're pretty much up to your report details or whatnot, this is the calculations that you will see, and this is how due determines those FTEs. Okay. For preschool, it goes as follows. The numerator is based on the student's calculated enrollment days. Okay. The percent of time is not applied. So for preschool students without a disability are not funded. Okay. So you'll see the NFRG, which Mary, you alluded to earlier. So that funding code you'll see there in your level 2 report. Okay. For enrolled days, calendar days, okay, this is how they determine your base FTEs, okay? So for example, if they're enrolled 178 days, okay, This is how they determine the FTE there. If they're enrolled for 89 days, they kind of give you a breakdown on how these actual FTEs are determined. Okay. And then it goes likewise, it just goes down. So enroll for 40 days. If your preschool calendar reads 178 days and they attended 178, of course you get the full FTE. If they attended less than that, then those calculations are determined in that way. Okay. Nothing special, nothing that you guys already know, but just want to kind of let you be aware on this is how they determine those FTEs there. Okay. So for percentage time of preschool, this is just kind of giving you a breakdown, and keep this slide for those who deal with preschool or whatnot. This is a great reference to use. Okay. So for calculating preschool percent of time, preschool students must be assigned to a calendar with 910 hours or more. A lot of you guys are pretty much aware, but if you're not, keep this slide to basically for your reference to use. Calendar hours per day are based on the students attending the entire school day, not half the day of school. Okay. So down below on this screenshot here, which is a very good screenshot, they give you basically the calculation formula and how they determine the percent of time, hours actually attended, and full-time calendar hours. Okay. So funding is based on head count regardless of percent of time. Okay, so for those students who are getting funded through grants or whatnot, I believe it's the ECE, Early Childhood Education. Do not quote me on that, guys. Don't shoot the messenger. And I believe special ed or whatnot, but special ed does not factor in this. I believe it's just a grant. This is how they determine those percent of times, calendar hours, and hours actually attended. Are there any questions to preschool students in the room before I go on?
Go
No.
on.
Okay. So for percent of time of preschool, there is an exception, okay? And this is an EMIS change here. If a preschool student is receiving services as directed by their IEP and no public district implementing those services has the student enrolled in a preschool course, okay, with a student percent of time greater than 0 and a district relationship of 1, then the student implementing those non-center based services may report the student with a district relationship of 1 instead of 2. Keep that in mind. The district reporting the relationship of 1 should report an appropriate student percent of time based on the amount of time the district is providing IEP directed services. Okay. A lot of you guys are aware or whatnot, if they're receiving services from another entity or whatnot, then in the FS standing or whatnot, that percent of time would need to be adjusted. Okay. I've had some tickets with that in the past. Have any of you guys been having any issues with this recently?
Nobody seems to.
Okay, cool. So here on the next slide here, it's just a percent of time and sent to percent of time. And this here is just highlighting. So if you go to your 001 report, which a lot of you guys may be in, if you scroll all the way over and columns W, X, Y, Z, and AA, okay, this basically is kind of giving you a breakdown of the student's percent of time, which is in columns W. X would be the sent to reason, okay? Sent reason, which is going to be your percentage in column Y. Z, if they're getting sent to another district or whatnot, or another LEA, okay? And then sent to reason there, the percentage of time, okay? So this kind of gives you a breakdown of the student's percentage of time. In columns X and Y, you have your sent to reason and that percentage. And if they're going to a second LEA, it would be the sent to reason and the percentage of time. Okay, that's pretty much an easy breakdown there. All right. Now, just to be nosy, have you guys have any students that are going to more than one um, LEA? Just curious.
I was thinking,
What do you mean? Yeah.
multiple sent to reasons,
Yeah.
CCP.
PCP kids.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I figured
Career
that.
Center.
Okay. Gotcha.
I'm looking at And they
Yeah.
have several that have multiples.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yep,
say now,
we got
Vicky.
some.
Okay, got you. So Vicky, so on your 001 report, you should probably see a lot of columns filled up in X, Y, and then Z and then double A, probably for your detail report or whatnot. That just kind of gives you a breakdown of what you've entered in the SIS so far, if you see that there. No, before it starts getting hectic with the end of the year reporting, Vicky.
Yeah.
So just touch base with them, you know what I mean? Because I just want to make sure you guys have that information in, you know what I mean, the appropriate columns, especially for your CCP courses.
Okay.
Okay, and this slide here is just basically kind of giving you a breakdown of percent of time, which is your hours per day calculation. And this is basically letting you guys know how to calculate a student's percent of time by dividing the number of hours per day the student attends by the number of hours per day on the student's calendar. Okay, so this is just a breakdown of full time, which is 6.5 hours, of course, okay, per day on the student's calendar. If they attend those full 6.5, of course, that equals to 100%. If they attend the calendar for 3.25 hours per day, then of course that equals out to 50% there. That's how those students are determined if they're half-time or full-time students. A lot of you guys are aware of this, but just kind of give you a review here of how they calculate their per day. And this is percent of time to 5 credit rule. This is when a high school student grades in 9th grade and above who are attempting 5 credits for the school year can be reported with a percent of time of 100%. High school students is attempting at least 5 credits for the school year. And high school students attempting 4 credits for the school year, okay, that would be at 80% there. Okay, so like I said before, if they have 5 credits, if they get all those 5 credits, of course, you guys know that's 100%. 4 credits, it would be 80%. So you guys are pretty much fully aware of that. Now, have any of you guys have any 5 credit students at all? I haven't seen anything that you guys have, but have you? Just curious, because I know that's rare. Anybody in the room?
No.
Okay, I was gonna say, okay. So percent of time calculations, and this, like I said before, it's just a breakdown on how they get to these calculations here. And this would be hours per day or attempted credits, okay? Students in grades preschool through 8 should be calculated using the hours per day calculation. High school percent of time can be calculated using the method that generates the highest percent of time. Okay, and this just applies to community schools there, so I won't kind of go into that, but the top column there would apply to the traditional districts there. Okay, and like I said, a lot of you guys are pretty much aware of this, but just kind of to give you guys a review on how they calculate the percent of time. Send 2% of time for CCP courses there. College Credit Plus participants will have a cent to of PS, College Credit Plus program participants. Send 2% of time that represents the time spent participating in College Credit Plus. Physical location of the CCP course and teacher, of course, should have no impact on the cent 2% reported. Combined total percent of time and cent 2% of time must not exceed 100%, which you guys pretty much know. If cent 2% is 100%, report a district relationship of 1. The report sent 2% of time does not send funding to the post-secondary institution. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay. Down below, it just kind of gives you a screenshot of what to look for in terms of the student's calendar per calendar determination process here. So for example, just to make it in layman's terms, in column 8, AH, if you scroll in your 001 report, all the way over, you'll see column AH. That is the calculated district IRN. So that could be the traditional district's IRN, the ESC, okay? You have your straight nines there, for example, for your I believe that is the out of district students there. Okay. And then your calculated building IRN, which is in columns AI. Okay. So basically, it's calculating the building IRN there. AJ, you have the calculated grade level. which, okay, for some, you'll have asterisks there for it'll give you preschool and, like I said before, any grade there. Calculate attendance pattern. It'll give you your attendance patterns in AK. Okay. So for example, like I said before, with these calculations here, it's just giving you a breakdown of the total hours. So if you look at columns AM and AN, total enrolled for for example, for the district, it'll have 1006.25. Total for this in the next column, it'll give you basically it should match up if they are a full FTE. If any of you guys have any different calculations, it could be, like I said before, if they're attending less hours, if they enrolled at a later time or whatnot, those hours will be different. Okay. But it's pretty much layman terms here. It's nothing, I don't want you guys to get, oh my goodness, like, what is this? It's just kind of giving you a breakdown on how they're looking at the calendar and the days there. Any questions with that? Any questions, Shelly, at all?
Good here.
Okay. So for EMIS calendars, okay, these are used as denominators in the calculation of student FTEs, which is why at the beginning of the year, they stress so hard to get that calendar in, because in the calendar, that also gives a determination of basically how you guys are going to get paid with the districts or whatnot. So if you notice at the beginning of the year, they're always saying, get your calendar in, get your calendar in, get your calendar in. Because what they do is ODE, they base your determination for your payments, your foundation payments, off of your calendar submissions. Okay. So it's vital that you get those calendars in the beginning of the year, I stress. These are reported in a separate collection as well, if you guys are aware, which is your C collection from your student data. Okay. This meets student data on the FTE report, can be assigned to a student when an exact match is not found. So, for example, like we discussed earlier with your calendar determinations and the FT report explanation, basically all this is you just want to make sure that your calendar matches up with the student. So, for example, if you have a preschool calendar, cool. Regular calendar for elementary, middle school, okay, great. High school. Now, I know seniors may be on a different one. I'm not sure. But you just want to make sure that all those calendars match up and they align with the EMIS, excuse me, the calendar submission that you guys are submitting in your C collection. Okay. If the FY25 state calendar is assigned, okay, it will appear as all straight nines, is where if you guys are aware. Begin on 8/21/2024. It ends on 5/28/2025. And that's basically the calendar year for your attendance there. Has 1050 hours of instruction, 6 hours per day, 175 days. Basically, you guys are well aware, you guys got to have a certain amount of hours and a certain amount of days or whatnot for your kids to have the appropriate days for their particular year. So all this is just make sure that you submit your C collection calendar. Make sure that those days are in there. You guys should have no issues moving forward. But the beginning of the year calendar selection, or excuse me, collection is very vital to the school year. So you want to make sure that calendar is good. So if you're reporting the incorrect EMIS calendar example, okay, incorrect calendar data can negatively impact student FT calculations. So for example, seniors attending 3 days less than other high school students. If seniors are placed on the default calendar and withdrawn on their last day, which is 3 days before the end of the default calendar, okay, it could come out with a less FTE, is what you can see there. Okay. Seniors are placed on a calendar that represents attendance days for their attending situation. So, like I mentioned before, you want to make sure that that calendar matches up with what you're submitting, okay, in your C collection as well as your S collection. You want to make sure that that matches up so that the students are getting the full FTEs. Have there been any situations where it may have been different that you guys may be experiencing? Anybody in the room?
Early grads.
Early grads. Okay. So, and who asked that question there, Shelley?
Lori.
It's not a
Well,
question.
yeah, it's not a question. It was just a statement.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know I'm dragging it, but
But yes, any details you could share.
okay. And Lori, I have a packet I can give you from a training I have that touches on early grads. So just I'll send that out to you today, and that'll probably help you a lot. and how they're determining, you know what I mean, the early grad calculations for you.
Really, it was just, I was pointing out an example was if you have a junior who's an early grad and you don't change them to the senior calendar.
Exactly.
I think that's the thing.
You're absolutely correct. That's a good question. That's a good point there, Lori. Yes. So you want to make sure, like I said, if you have any early grads, you want to make sure that you adjust their calendar accordingly so that they can get the appropriate calculations for the FTE as well. Good, Lori. Thank you for that. Here it's just kind of giving you basically an example here in terms of what your adjusted base FTE is. And then, for example, what your your enrolled CT FTE is. So, for example, in columns T and in columns U, okay, and we'll discuss this in greater detail in the next slides. In columns T, it gives you an adjusted base FTE, okay? So, for example, what that student's FTE is based to this point, and the CT FTE basically whole number there in columns U. And I'll go over this real quickly here. Okay. So for your enrolled ADM columns, this is the adjusted FTE columns for students in grades 4 through 12 from the FTE detail report, which is your 001 report. And this is compared to the adjusted CTE FTE from the CT FTE detail report. Okay. Now keep in mind, this is excluding any CT FTE for senior only credential programs and split into a non-CTE and a CTE amount. So for example, enrolled ADM adjusted base FTE, okay? This is the non-CTE portion of the adjusted FTE. So keep in mind, that's just like with special ed. You're gonna have two columns, in some cases three, where, for example, you'll have the adjusted base FTE, special ed, or in this case, the CTE adjusted FTE, okay? So for enrolled ADM CT FTEs, you'll see that CTE portion on the adjusted FTE report. So on the adjusted FTE report, which is your 003 report, it's going to show you what that adjusted FTE is for that CTE student. Okay. So enrolled ADM adjusted base FTEs plus your enrolled ADM CT FTEs is going to equal your adjusted FTE. So basically all this is just entailing is with these two, added columns, this is letting you guys know what you're going to be getting paid for your district. Okay. And that's going to include your CTE funding as well as your adjusted base. Okay. Students are still funded for CT FTEs as in years past. Okay. And basically, you can check out your CT FTE detail report for your weighted FTE data and in terms of what you're getting funded for that particular year so far. Okay. So you guys should see on your level 2 reports a CT FTE report, which breaks down basically what your district is getting paid for the year. Okay. I think many of you guys should have that CT FTE report. Are any of you guys not showing that in your level 2s? Let me know. Anybody, Shelly, who's there, who's not, they should have that. Nobody? Okay. So for your student attributes in your FD tab, you just want to make sure that all this information in there is correct and updated. I know a lot of times that you guys will have multiple FD attribute tabs. You just want to make sure that those are up to date and current, whether it be for special ed. I know that's updated. I know a lot of times for heck, even economically disadvantaged kids, it's updated. Okay. You just want to verify EMIS elements that generate additional funding on FTE reports, like I mentioned before. Your special education disability conditions, economic disadvantagement, English learner. All those are in your FTE attributes tab. Okay. Those also make a determination, for example, when the IEP started, when it stopped, when economically disadvantaged, when it started, if they got labeled down to reduced. That's updated. So you'll generally see that throughout the course of the year. Changes in FTE attributes result in additional lines of data on the FTE detail report for the same student. So again, if you guys have multiple lines in your FTE attributes tab, that should reflect on your report. So whether it be for special ed, Okay, for anything pertaining to that, whatever you put in your FTE attributes in gradebook, that should reflect in your 001 report. Okay. Weighted EMIS elements should be reported accurately as they affect funding and accountability. So again, you just want to make sure that those dates match up. Make sure that your IEP dates match up and the disability conditions match up. If you guys are not getting the appropriate disability code, that can have an impact on funding. So you want to make sure that that's situated. Shelly, you're taking off a mute. Do you have any questions there?
Rebecca.
Yeah,
Can you put up to slide 67?
sure.
You were asked in the room what report, were you asking if they had the CTE, FTE detailed report?
Correct.
Okay, because we have several who do not have that yet.
Okay, they do not have it. Okay. So, Rebecca, I tell you what, can you get me who are they who are not who don't have that who are not seeing a report right now?
There for Orville. I guess
Okay,
that's
cool.
out of this room. Laura-
Okay,
Oh, okay, so that's why. Okay, that's all. And would that be the same for Chippewa? You don't have any CTE kids? All right, ignore me. Moving
okay,
on.
no, I'm sorry. No, no, good, Rebecca. Feel free to interrupt me anytime. I'm sorry.
Nobody commented, we don't have it and why they don't. Okay, I'm learning.
Okay, no, okay, I'm sorry. My bad. So for example, for the FD attributes, you're going to see whatever you guys have in SIS. Okay, Gradebook, Dazzle is what I like to call it. All that information is going to reflect in these columns. So for example, in columns AB on your FTE 001 report, that's going to be, of course, your grade level. AC is going to be the disability condition code. That's going to apply to your special ed. So whatever you have in your FD for your disability code, that's going to be mentioned there in AC. Okay, in AC column there. Okay. Your AD, that's going to pretty much reflect the type code there that you're going to use for your special ed code there. If they're economically disadvantaged there, it's going to show in AE if they are or not. Okay. So basically, in these particular columns, you just want to make sure that whatever you guys have in your FD attributes, it is shown as reflected in these columns. If it isn't, and you're saying, oh my goodness, I have a column that's, it's not reflecting and it should be, go back and check your FD attributes and see. Because like I said, it could just be something major, I'm saying, not something major, I'm sorry, something minor that can be corrected. Okay, keep in mind, economic disadvantage, you guys get funded for that. Special ed, you guys get funded for that. So you want to make sure that you're on top of those columns there. Okay. Any questions pertaining to these particular columns here?
Go ahead.
Okay, again. So I wanted to confirm, if the higher the number in column AB, the lower the number in column AC.
Well, no. So
AB is the grade level.
yeah, AB is at grade level. Okay. So the disability condition code is just what they're classified with their IEP, Rebecca. So for example, they can be classified as SLD, right? Which is specific learning disabilities. That you'll see that code reflected in AC. You see what I'm trying to say? So the disability condition code is just basically making a determination of what their IEP is. You understand what I'm saying? And that should show in AC. Does that make sense to you?
Wrote a note from the trainings we got, so it's just, I wrote a bad note. I also have lower the number means higher/more funding.
Well, that is correct. If they do have lower number, that is more fun. You are correct. Okay. I do know that depending on what SLD they do have, or sorry, not SLD, I'm sorry, the IEP they do have, that's a determination of funding for a district. So you are correct in that sense. It just depends on, like I said, the classification of what their IEP is. If that makes sense to you.
Yep, she's good.
So adjusted gifted FTE, and this is in column S here. Okay. For any of you districts there that have identified your gifted students, okay, you're going to see, okay, your adjusted gifted FTE in column S. This is going to show you here in terms of how much FTEs you guys are being funded for at the present time. Okay. Now, adjusted gifted FTEs uses the first day of the month they are identified in the current year. So, for example, if you guys identified your gifted students in the month of, let's just say, February, okay, it's going to go from February 1st on to the last day of school, okay? Students who are identified in the prior year will begin generating adjusted gifted FTEs from the first day of school, okay? And it's going to continue reporting as identified gifted. So, like I said before, identifying your gifted kids as soon as possible is very key to you guys getting as much funding as possible for those kids for the year. Okay, now listen, some certain districts can't help it. They may identify kids at a later point in time. Okay, and that's okay. All right, if you guys move at that pace, there's nothing you can do about that. Okay, but it's going to basically adjust those gifted students based on when, for example, they were identified. So if they're identified in February, it's going to start in February to the end of the year, and vice versa. Okay. If they're identified earlier in the year, then of course it starts at that time. So you just want to make sure that you get that information in as soon as possible. Has anybody been having issues with their gifted FTEs? I know you guys are pretty much on top of things, but I just wanted to ask because sometimes that does come up.
Do you have a question on a gifted?
Yeah.
Okay, so the original FTE and the adjusted FTE match, as does the adjusted gifted FTE and the enrolled admission adjusted base FTE.
So, okay.
The issue
Okay.
comes in over in just a second. The last two columns, column AM and AN.
Mm-hmm.
We're total enrolled for this, and it could be just a question of days. Well, no. AM total enrolled for this record is 216, but total for this calendar is 1168.35. And I'm not understanding why the two numbers aren't matching.
Well, if they were identified in the prior year,
Okay.
okay, then those numbers will be a little bit different because they were identified. You know what I'm saying? Like they're carrying over from the following
Okay.
year. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a critical, and I just want to make sure that it's not going to be a funding issue.
No, it shouldn't be because if you look in column S and you're getting and it's showing the funding that you're getting with your adjusted FTE, it should, excuse me, get the FTE, then this shouldn't affect your funding for right now. I would suggest for right now, we need to look at to see when they were identified as gifted and then tackle it from there because that's probably what it is, and it's throwing off your hours.
So the ones in column S where I have a 0 and all the other columns have numbers, I need to find out when they were identified as gifted.
Right. Or if they were identified at all as gifted. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yep.
All righty, thank you.
No problem. So this is going to be for the partial enrollment funded gifted report. And this is in that 006 report that I had mentioned earlier. Okay. If you guys have that, okay, then you guys can click on this report here, and this will give you a breakdown, okay, of what this report represents for your partial enrollment. This contains only students who are identified for the first time in the current school year based on enrollment versus date identified as gifted. Keep that in mind. So this is for first time in the current school year. Students can have multiple rows that align with the FTE detail report, and this report shows the gifted FTE per row. So for example, if you look down below, you'll see the result codes, which is just identifying the gifted data there, which we'll get into. And then it'll show here in the columns L, gifted, not funded, okay, gifted, partially funded, and then gifted, fully funded. Okay, so it's going to give you a breakdown of if they're identified as gifted, who's not getting funded, who's partially getting funded, and who's fully getting funded for the gifted students. Okay, now For the third row student is reported as identified gifted during the entire time span of this row and is fully funded as gifted for now. So in the third row here, you'll see that this particular district and this student is getting fully funded. Now, it could be an array of reasons as to why a student is not getting funded and a student is getting partially funded. Okay, and we'll go into that. But I just want you guys to be aware of this report and what it represents, and basically when these kids were identified, when the gift is started, and all the other good stuff there. So we'll go into that here in these next slides. But I just wanted to see if you guys can pull up this report, and if you can, if you're seeing these result codes there. Anybody there, Shelly, in the room?
You guys have your. Yeah, they have their report open.
Okay, great. Great. Now, is there any questions to that report, Shelly? Did they have anything? Is it pretty much kind of lining up to what they believe is accurate?
Yeah, no questions.
Okay, great. Okay, so quick check here. Are all students appearing on the report as expected? You guys just want to review and make sure those reports are accurate. Are student-based FTEs being calculated correctly? Okay, so you want to make sure that your student-based FTEs, you're getting the most out of them as possible. And are student attributes and gifted FTEs values correct? So you just want to just review those and make sure that those are correct for your district. Okay. So reviewing the resident students educated elsewhere report. This is going to be on your level 2 enrolled 001. Everyone should have it there in your level 2. Let me know if you guys are having any issues locating it, but it's going to be your enrolled ENRL-001 report. Shelly, I think they should all have it there on their level 2. It should be down at the bottom there, or midway to the bottom.
We're good in the room.
So for your resident educated elsewhere result codes, okay, this is just kind of give you a breakdown of the 7 result codes that you'll see on this report, okay? For your 01, that's your open enrolled to another district. 02, open enrolled to another district and attending a JVS. 03 is open enrolled to a non-jointure JVS. 04, enrolled into a community school. 05, enrolled into a STEM district. 06, resident student enrolled in an autism scholarship program. And of course, 07, which is going to be your John Peterson scholarship program. So all of these students that you have that are residents educated elsewhere, you'll see these result codes aligned with those students in that report. Okay. So this kind of gives you an ability to see how these students are being reported and how much FTEs are being generated. Okay. And if the students are being reported with a disability, that's where you can see all this information here in this report. Okay. So here's a screenshot, and this should be what you guys are seeing pretty much for the most part here. And columns A, of course, you have the reporting district IRN there. The severity code, which is going to be all informational there. SSID. And down in columns G and column H, you're going to see, of course, the report name, okay, the actual result code, and then the description there. Okay, so it should read resident students educated elsewhere report. It should read that there for the students there, of course, because we're also in that actual residents educated elsewhere report. Okay, so if you guys are seeing anything else, let me know. But this should be what you should see on this report here. And this is the example screenshot here. So the result codes are assigned based on where and how the students are attending elsewhere. So for example, in K and L, you'll see in columns K reporting IRN. It could be a traditional IRN. It could be a JVS. It could be a community school IRN. So keep that in mind there. Of course, in columns L, it should pretty much match up with what you have in columns K. So for example, traditional IRN is in column K. Column L, it should just spell out traditional district. JVS, IRN, JVSD, community school, and so on, okay? And columns M and N, it'll give you the start date from when that student started. Of course, end date will be throughout the course of the year. And columns P, it'll show you with the student with a disability flag. So if those students have been identified as special ed, it will indicate it there, okay, in columns P on that report. So for this report, are all students appearing on the report as expected? Are all your reporting open enrollment students, or excuse me, are you reporting your open enrollment students appropriately? And are you seeing the community school and STEM schools, excuse me, STEM students in ODEX and SOAS, which you guys don't have the community schools there, so I'm assuming that you guys won't see that there in that report. Here on this next slide, and we're concluding part one, this is just kind of giving you guys some references that you guys can use and some resources or whatnot that you guys can use if you guys are having any issues troubleshooting any of these actual reports here for the FTE detail reports, okay? And if you have any issues pertaining to CTE, you do have your error coordinator and your error 26 coordinator that you guys can refer to as well, okay? And that's pretty much it. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Part two is going to be the doozy. That's when we're going to be calculating the FTEs from the FTE reports, and that will be on March 11th, I believe. So I should see all you lovely faces there or whatnot, so we can calculate the FTEs there. So if you guys have any questions or whatnot for me.
Go ahead. Yep.
So I'm looking, in this last report, and I looked at my John Peterson students.
Uh-huh.
I noticed that I have one on there that I was not aware of, so I probably need to talk to my student services. The student went home to homeschool and nobody ever told me that he was out there.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's the communication. Just communicate with them. And did it just pop up from the previous year?
No, he.
I'm sorry, from the previous months.
Yeah, I mean, he just went to homeschool not too long ago. Back in December, so.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
But he needs to be back in our system, he's under withdrawal.
Okay, gotcha. And that's
Right,
see.
is that correct? Yeah, okay, that's nice that that's in there, I would have not known that. So that's kind of a nice double check.
The stop. Well, if there's.
Hey, Tim, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, we have two, very special needs students in our district that are only receiving services.
Okay.
Essentially, both kiddos are on hospice.
Oh wow. Okay.
So should I be looking for any flags? I'm not seeing any flags on any of the reports for them so far, but should I look for any? Are there any that might pop up for a kid in that situation?
Well, you want to sit there and check in your FS standing and see how they're being coded for now. If you're saying that are they getting services outside of your district?
No, they're being served at home. They're doing the hospice at home, so everybody's going there for now. The
Oh.
medical people, the services people.
I got you. So in that particular case, we want to go ahead and check the FS standing just to make sure that those student standings are correct. You know what I mean? Because they're receiving services. You're saying that they're receiving services going to them, right?
Right, and these are little guys. I mean, one would be in first grade if he were a typical student, and the other one would be in kindergarten.
Okay, gotcha. So what we want to do is check the FS standing to make sure that they're appropriately coded. Okay, because nine
Right.
times out of 10, they're receiving services, basically to their residents, basically. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
we just want
Yes.
to make sure that they're sent to reason and they're coded correctly for the EMIS situation. So
Okay.
send me those two kids and I can take a look at them and then definitely get back to you.
Okay, I can give you their names right now.
Okay. Yeah, just email them. Just put them in a ticket.
Email
For
it,
me.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Hey, Tim, I have another question. It's Veronica.
Hey, Veronica.
So, yeah, so I was looking, when we were doing our FTE detail, I had two kiddos at the top of my report that, they're not available, and I ended up figuring out that they're, my residents, they're attending at the career center, but they are not, they went directly to the career center, so they're not even in my, like, they enrolled directly. So it looks like the one kiddo is a senior, and is that, looks like the percent of time is 50%, so does that mean I think he went to homeschool a couple years ago, so does that mean he's at homeschool for half and then 50% at the career center? And why?
Yeah. So
On
what's
my report, because he's my
yeah,
resident.
so if it's 50% that's being reported, so he must be getting educating at another entity. So looking at that and see if it's specifically the home, you know what I mean, like the homeschooling or whatnot, like where
Yeah,
that
he's
divide is.
homeschool because he's on our homeschool list. So then he got approved by he's been homeschooled for a couple of years. So
Okay.
must have enrolled directly into the career center because we don't have him down. So I don't have to do anything with him for the career center, correct?
Right. Like, no. I would just go ahead and just leave. If it's in its FS standing, if it's coded appropriately, I would suggest just leaving it the way it is. Because if it was approved by the superintendent, there's nothing more that you can do on your end, you know what I mean, in terms of how you have it coded already.
Yeah. And then there's one other student that I don't know who they are at all. But they
Okay.
must be our resident. They're attending at the career center. The original FTE is 1 and the just FTE is 1. So does that mean even though that they're not in our system at all, but they enrolled at the career center directly, but since they're our resident, that's why they're appearing on my report.
Yeah, that's why you're going to see them on the report.
Okay. I've never seen them.
Oh, and also, Veronica, real quick, I did respond to your thing. Just take a look at that and see if that matches up, and we'll talk later about that.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. No problem. Anybody else? Any questions, Lori? Anybody else?
No, thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, like I said, I'll stay on. Shut I got your chat.
Thank
I'll
you.
stay on. If you guys good, I'm sorry.
Oh, that was just me coughing.
Oh, okay. Well, if you guys don't have any questions, I will see you guys here March 11th, and we can just tackle those calculations there.